Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
FairBreak is empowering so many women, not just female cricketers, but umpires, coaches, physios, media people, and commentators. And they're creating social impact in communities all around the world by giving more opportunities to players. Look, I've worked in some very patriarchal and misogynistic work environments over my 40-year career, and it is refreshing and an absolute revelation to find myself at FairBreak, where women are heard, valued, and celebrated. And I want women like me who may know nothing about cricket to discover what FairBreak is doing and to learn about what has been achieved in this area of global sport.
That was a clip from today's podcast with Karen Motyka, the author of FairBreak the book. Karen joined me to discuss her first book about the FairBreak story so far, from its founding in 2013 by Sean Martin to the success of the first invitational tournament in Dubai in May 2022. Hello, Karen. Good evening in Sydney. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Stephen. Just to let you know, I'm not in Sydney. I am 5 hours south of Sydney in a small coastal town called Maruya Heads.
Oh, that's put me right, and hopefully relax you now, because you say you're really nervous because it's your first podcast. But I'm looking forward to talking to you about FairBreak, the book. What was your inspiration for the book?
Well, to be perfectly honest, Stephen, there was no inspiration. The story starts in about this time last year. I kind of fell into FairBreak by accident, to be perfectly honest. So Sean's executive assistant is a friend of mine, and she was really busy preparing for the Dubai tournament. And at the time, I was only working part-time because my husband and I had sold our business, and I was, a bit of a free agent, a couple of days a week. So Elle got me over to her house, and I started helping her out with things and like writing letters to major Australian corporations, trying to get sponsorship, writing to sports bra brands, asking for donations for their products, for the breast trial that they were going to have at the tournament. And then Sean handed over the writing of all the player announcements he'd been doing for social media to me. And so encapsulating the biographies for, all these players into 280 characters for Twitter sort of became my superpower. And then he got me writing media releases, for cricket journalists and sports media people around the world, just keeping everyone updated about sponsors and umpires and coaches and broadcasters that were going to be coming on board for the Dubai tournament. So, look, I had never done anything like this before. I'd never written anything in terms of formally. And then in March, I was gobsmacked because I received this email from Sean asking me if I'd write a book about FairBreak.
So it was Sean's the inspiration, you see.
So, yeah. So I didn't suddenly get up one morning and go, oh, Sean, we must write a book about FairBreak. He emailed me. I was gobsmacked. I was flattered, but I was apprehensive about the whole thing because, I didn't feel that I was appropriately qualified to take on such a project because I'm not a writer. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a cricketer. Other than a bit of tennis, I don't really watch sport on TV or read about it in the newspapers. A full disclosure, I hadn't never been to a cricket match.
You're married to an Australian.
I know, but he's a rugby union player, not a cricketer. Anyway, So outside of what I'd been doing for FairBreak for a few weeks, I knew very little about the sport or the women who played it. But Sean didn't care about my lack of qualifications. He wanted the book written by a woman, and by a woman who hadn't been steeped in cricket all her life. And he wanted me to be objective and to make the book accessible to all readers, especially women like me. Ultimately, he was empowering me with a chance to shine. And that's what Sean and FairBreak are all about. Seeing talent and skill in an individual and presenting them with opportunities they may never have got. So they all went off to Dubai for the tournament. I went to the UK to visit my parents, and then I got back in sort of middle of June, and Sean and I met up for coffee, and he gave me a list of email addresses of people he wanted me to interview. And he also sent me short voice recordings he'd made on his phone of his memories, not only from the early days, but also a bit of a download of what had happened in Dubai. So I started contacting my interviewees who were in various international locations and arranging Zoom meetings with them. And then Sean and I would meet every fortnight for a coffee, and I'd record our chats on my phone. He gave me a USB stick of old correspondence that he and Lisa Stalaker had with various cricket boards. And we sort of drew up a rough list of potential subject areas, a historical timeline, the people and the organisations who'd supported FairBreak, and the detractors.
Well, that kept you busy, didn't it?
So that was kind of stage one of the story, really.
They say everyone's got a book in them, is that right then?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, I've been saying for years to my husband and my kids and my family, and I've just said, I've got a book in me somewhere, and I when I get a moment, I'm gonna do it, and and. So, yeah, this time last year, if somebody had said to me, by the end of the year, you'll have written a book and published it, I would have just laughed.
So was it harder than you thought then?
It was at the beginning. Look, I got to say I was quite daunted by the whole thing. But I went, I just kind of, I was committed, So I was like, well, I've just got to get on with this. I'll just do it the way I do everything else in my life. I'll just make it up as I go along. So the first thing I did was I went full immersion into the subject. So I researched everything I could find online about FairBreak and women's cricket. Every morning while I was walking the dog, I'd listen to podcasts I found on Spotify. And that because that was I did listen to Women's Cricket Chat a lot. Because it was a good way to familiarise myself with many of the female cricketers who have played for FairBreak and some of the famous retired ones. Because I didn't really know anything about the subject, and I just wanted to get my head around some of these women and who they were and their names. And look, I really enjoyed listening to their accents and learning about their lives and their cricket careers.
Do you think it actually helped then not knowing about cricket? So you were starting with a clean
clean
sheet of paper.
Yeah. I was a blank canvas completely. and Stephen, just to give you a bit of domestic context while all this was going on. So my twin sons were studying for their HSC, which is the Australian equivalent of A-levels. And my husband was unemployed and was having a sabbatical skiing in the snowy mountains. So I was keeping the wheels on the wagon at home and writing a book, which I'd never done before in my life.
That sounds challenging.
I knew nothing about.
That sounds challenging. How did you go about, setting times? Did you do certain times of the day and that sort of thing?
Well, I sort of, I kept a, rough office hours. But sometimes, that would extend because, if I was interviewing people in the UK, like I'm speaking to you now, I'd be working into the evening to accommodate, time differences. So, I interviewed people in the UK, Hong Kong, India, obviously Australia, people all over the place. So, yeah. I had quite a tight deadline as well. So I thought that the book was going to be launched in April of this year. That was the original plan at the Hong Kong tournament. But then in early September, Sean told me that he was shaving 2 months off my deadline and that we were going to launch the book in Canberra at the end of January. So, yes, that did focus my mind quite a bit. But look, I got on with it and, bashed it out in 5 months.
Interviewing people, though, with FairBreak, as I've experienced, everyone's enthusiastic, aren't they, to actually interview someone about FairBreak. I bet you got some great material when you're chatting to people. You must have been Zoomed out as well.
Look, I really enjoyed the whole Zoom experience. I went into it not knowing actually how to do a Zoom.
There are lots of people like that, I can assure you.
It was well outside of my skill set. I hadn't done anything like that, but you get into it and it was great. And I had some fabulous conversations with people. And look, I mean, you've read the book, Stephen, so you'll know the diverse range of characters who appear in the book. So, we've got elite players, coaches, umpires, commentators. We've got a women's cricket historian, a physiotherapist, a breast health professor. We've got 2 lawyers from the world's largest law firm, 2 integrity and anti-corruption officials tasked with protecting everyone from match fixers in Dubai. We've got Sean's best mate from school, the women behind FairBreak's branding, marketing and social media, a beautiful South African TV host. We've got a global media rights advisor, the development manager from Cricket Hong Kong, the owner of a multinational pharmaceutical empire.
You've got plenty of variety there, haven't you?
There's just it was fabulous meeting all these people on Zoom. I loved it.
And the book split, I think, into 3 parts. You've got the first innings, as you call it, the early days, and then you've got the second innings, the first global T20 tournament that's in Dubai. And also, at the end, we've got reflections and the future, along with a lot of photographs. And one thing I noticed with the photographs is that nearly everybody in the photos is smiling.
Oh well, how could they not be smiling? I mean, FairBreak is such a joyful organization to be connected to.
Oh no, it's wonderful. I looked at the photos and thought everybody's smiling on these photos, and they are.
Yeah. Look, it was there was hundreds of photos. I had to do a massive cull of photos because we had photos dating from 2003 all the way up to December, just before Christmas when Bangladesh were touring New Zealand. So I was constantly being sent photographs by Sean, who'd get sent photographs by other people. So, you wanted to know about the different parts of the book. I think there's 5 sections, really. You've got the first innings, the second innings, the photographs, follow on, and then further reading. And those 5 sections evolved organically, I suppose, because in September, Sean wanted to have a look at what I'd done so far. I'd been emailing him stuff here and there, and I had all these Word documents on my laptop, and I was struggling to see the wood for the trees in terms of how the book would be structured. So I printed everything out and I laid it all out on the floor. And at that stage, the manuscript fell roughly into 2 main sections: everything that had happened before Dubai and everything that happened in Dubai. So the historical timeline and the interviews with people who were part of the journey up to Dubai went into one pile, and the perspectives of the characters who were in Dubai went into the second pile. And then Sean and I decided only a couple of weeks before we published that we'd call those the first and the second innings. So back in September, when I was doing this kind of two-pile situation, I hadn't interviewed Jeff Lawson because he'd been away in Europe on the tour, nor had I interviewed Alex Blackwell or Sana Mir. And those three are key people in the FairBreak management team. And I felt that they deserved to be in their own section, along with some comment about the future. And then in November, because Sean had been away in the USA and he wanted to reveal his hopes and aspirations for a USA tournament and a multi-nation FairBreak team in the WBBL, I felt that the logical place to put the perspectives of the USA-based coach, Julie Abbott, and the thank you letter from Poppy McGowan was in the follow-on section with all of that. So that's why there's really kind of 5 sections. And in terms of the photos, when I first sort of structured the book, they were right at the end. And I gave an early manuscript to a friend of mine to have a look through. And she's very visual. And she helped me actually with some of the photos. And she said, I think you need to move the photos up the book a bit, just to kind of reward the reader, for engaging with everything rather than sticking them down the back. So that's why they've been brought up into a sort of a section after Dubai, but before follow on. So that's why the photos are there.
Can we just talk about some of the points that in the book that I mentioned earlier before we came on air? In the first innings, I was interested in, and it came over the determination of Sean and the struggles he had early on when the FairBreak sort of movement began really in about 2013.
Okay. Well, I mean, as you can tell, I mean, it was when I first started writing this and we started discussing it, Sean was quite adamant. He was sort of, I don't want this book to be about me. And I don't want people to think it's some sort of, it's a book, it's a book that, discusses, my journey. And I said, well, no, I get that, but we need to have a discussion about you as a person and what has shaped you. So I want to know about your education. I want to know about your home life, your parents, what drove you as a young man to get into to recognize injustice and inequality, and what shaped you at school that has brought you to this place. So that's why we've got a prologue that discusses Sean's background and what it was like at school, and his, all the female, the strong female role models in his life. So I felt that was really important. And I wanted his level of resilience and his recognition of injustice and to come through. So hope I've achieved that.
I think you have, because I think in the early days he did have quite a lot of knockbacks, and it's not until 2018, May 2018, when the FairBreak 11 played their first match at that fantastic ground at Wormsley.
That he started to get a bit of traction. Yeah.
But then moving to the second innings, one of the stories that really caught my imagination was the watch for Winnie Durasingham, the Malaysian player who took 3 wickets in one of the matches at the Dubai Invitational.
Mm-hmm.
And she was the player of the match. And what was written by you through Katie Martin, the New Zealand international cricketer who actually retired after FairBreak. That was a wonderful story.
It is a wonderful story, isn't it? It drove. Well, it didn't drive, actually. That's wrong, because the picture of Winnie that's on the front of the cover, that's on the book cover, I chose that photograph not knowing that story Okay, so I had flicked through a selection of photos that had been taken in Dubai, and I spotted that picture of Winnie, and I cropped it out of a larger team photograph of when she got that player of the match. And I was just captivated by the joyfulness of it. And I felt that she was the perfect poster girl for everything that FairBreak is doing to showcase the unseen talent of female cricketers from associate nations. And frankly, how often do we see a photograph of a young Asian woman on the cover of a book about sport? So, yeah, the story behind that photograph is discussed in the New Zealand wicketkeeper Katie Martin's interview in the second innings section of the book, and it just fills me with joy when I read that story. Katie and Winnie were both on the Tornadoes team, and in this one particular match, Winnie got 3 wickets. She got player of the match. And everyone on the Tornadoes team was chanting, "Watch for Winnie, watch for Winnie." And Katie was on the sideline with her when Sean announced, "Okay, you got player of the match, Winnie." And she won an Apple Watch, and she was so chuffed. And apart from winning the watch, it was the encouragement that she had got from the whole team. And moments like that, FairBreak moments like that, are just really special. And that's why Winnie's on the book cover for me. I loved that story so much.
And that's what FairBreak's all about. And the Tornadoes went on to win.
They went on to win the tournament, yes.
That's right. Moving on then, of course, you mentioned Geoff Lawson, the former Australian Test star of the 1980s. And I loved his reflections when he commented on the fact that the women players in FairBreak, there's no complaining. They had a time when a bus was late and it didn't seem to trouble them at all, and they just got on with it. And there's so much appreciation for playing the game of cricket together, a fantastic atmosphere. They just want to play and enjoy cricket.
That's right, Stephen. Yes, I loved what Geoff had to say about the tour to England, Scotland, and the Netherlands, and the camaraderie, and it just sounds like a school trip, a fantastic school trip. And I was like, I would love to have been on that school trip. It just sounds so great. The girls singing on the bus, and everyone just getting on together, and everyone has such a simple and non-diva like attitude to being picked for a FairBreak 11 tour and to be representing FairBreak. And it filled me with joy to read about these women and how they represented FairBreak in the UK in last summer.
So many different nationalities that you're dealing with as well. And one of those was, or is, Poppy McGowan, the French national player. Now,
yes,
anyone reading the book, there's, I think, about a 4-page, I think it was an email she sent as a thank you for being part of the England, Scotland and the Netherlands tour. She was the first French player to play for FairBreak. And that email really captures what FairBreak means to the players and what it's all about.
It does, yeah. Poppy she's pretty much encapsulated what it is like for a young woman from an associate nation to be just plucked out of their country and given just an amazing opportunity to not only represent their country, but to be an ambassador for FairBreak and to learn and to share with other female up and coming female cricketers, and to play cricket and to have a wonderful time.
Yeah, that email really captured the words you got on the cover of the book: inclusion, opportunity, which is the one I always think, diversity, equality, and movement. That 4-page email from her really captured all those words.
It did. I mean, she says here, it gave me so much inspiration, motivation, and ideas about how to get better myself, how to train harder, but also how to bring more cricket or different cricket back to France. And nobody associates France with cricket. But it's happening. And, and there's a small cohort of women playing cricket over there. And, Poppy is going to be, the ambassador for FairBreak and for women's cricket in France.
Well, there's no other cricket tournament where you get, FairBreak Invitational, I think there's 35, 36 countries involved in one event.
No, outside of an Olympic Games, it just doesn't happen.
Turning to your book launch on the 4th of February, which you've said earlier you hoped was going to be sometime in April, but it was staged at the Bradman room at the Manuka Oval. What a fantastic venue to be holding the book launch.
Yes. Yeah, the book launch in Canberra was a fabulous day. Look, I have to admit, I was quite nervous about the whole thing, which is why I don't know if you saw it on social media, but I organised a soft launch a week before on my friend's farm down here on the coast. And it was a great way to get a feel for what it would be like to sit with Sean on a podium in front of an audience and explain what FairBreak is all about and how we wrote the book. And lots of my friends in my local community who couldn't make the Canberra launch attended, and it was a great way to include them and to raise the profile of FairBreak locally, because Sean and I live about 20 miles apart, and having a bit of a dress rehearsal. But the Canberra launch was, it was fabulous, completely different feel and crowd. It started at 10 a.m. on the 4th of February in the Bradman room, and it's Manuka. So Manuka is a very exclusive suburb in Canberra, and it has a very historic cricket oval. And there was an amazingly diverse group of people there. We had Jennifer Westacott, who's the chair of the Australian Business Council, who is our patron. She's really passionate about women's cricket, and she'd been in Dubai. Obviously, we had the girls in the multi-nation FairBreak 11 squad and the Cricket ACT Meteors team who played a T20 match after the book launch. So they were all in the room. Then we had Senator Katie Gallagher, who's the Minister for Finance and Women in the Australian Parliament. And she bought a book for Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister. So that was a kind of quite a special moment. We had high commissioners there from Vanuatu, Malaysia and Papua New Guinea. We had the Australian ambassador to Mongolia, the public diplomacy advisor to the High Commission of New Zealand. Lots of my friends came up from the coast and from Sydney. Jeff Lawson and his wife were there. We had Mr. Venkatesh, Jamie Fuller, Rena Hoare, Kim Livesley and Deirdre McGee, who are all interviewed in the book. They were in the room. We had Georgie Redmayne from the Australian women's team, came to catch up with some of the players that she'd played with in Dubai. We had Holly Furling, who, as the MC, she plays for the Perth Scorchers, and she's a Channel 7 commentator here. So it was really brilliant. And my husband and two of my sons were there as well. So it was a very life-affirming, significant day for me, I have to say.
So did the trial run make you less nervous on the day on the 4th of February?
It did, yeah. Even though it was a very different, it was a very different crowd, very different kind of venue. It kind of eased me in gently to the whole thing, and just took the edge off slightly. But I still was nervous. But once I was up on the podium, I was okay. I settled into it, and it was lovely, and it was great to have such an amazingly articulate MC like Holly Furling, who knows her subject. She's a very talented female cricketer here in Australia. So, asked some really great questions. So Jennifer Westacott, our patron, spoke. I spoke. Sean spoke. I read a couple of passages from the book, from the Alex Blackwell interview. It went really, really well. I was very happy.
And Holly had played against the FairBreak 11 in the Canberra Games tour.
She did, yeah. So she plays not only for the Perth Scorchers, but she also plays for the Cricket ACT Meteors.
And have you got some more occasions like this coming up before you go off to Hong Kong, or are you going to Hong Kong?
I'm not 100% sure whether I'm going to Hong Kong at this point. I'm still waiting for confirmation on that. Sean and I did have a conversation before Christmas. He's Sean always thinks big. He's always like on to the next project, and he was saying that he would like a coffee table book. Okay. So he's already talking about book 2.
Oh, do you know, it's one of my next questions. Is there another book? And you've already answered the question already. So
I'm like, are you serious? I haven't finished book 1 yet. And so he was saying that, so what he'd really like is a book of beautiful photographs and interviews with some of the players, like to get their backstories, to just tell the world about what these women's journeys have been to get to where they are in terms of, being able to balance professional cricket, playing professional cricket, and generally what is a very serious, proper job. And we have some amazing women who are engineers and lawyers and doctors and geneticists and statisticians and physios, and these women are so multidisciplined, so amazingly talented, and they're juggling 2 very serious careers. And,
I think we shouldn't forget this. It comes through in the book as well. And some of the people I've spoken to for other podcasts, people are taking time off work, holidays, juggling so many different things. And then they're playing international sport against, international, major cricketing players.
Yes. Yeah, they are. So, and it's been like that for many years. I mean, look, the likes of, the Australian cricket team, I mean, they're really lucky now. They're on, great contracts. And so the pressure is off them financially now. But we've still got, dozens and dozens and dozens of elite female cricketers all over the world who are juggling the 2 and maybe raising a family as well. I mean, take Papua New Guinea, for example. There's 7 women on the Papua New Guinean national team who have children, who are mothers, and have to juggle being a parent as well as, playing professional cricket for their country and possibly having a job on the side as well.
And there's no better person than Karen Motyka to write the second book, because you said earlier in this podcast that you did all that research about the players for the book. Well, no.
Yeah. It wasn't for the book. So when in the run-up to the Dubai tournament, there was 90 women who needed to be announced, to be given a sort of a shout-out on social media in the run-up to the tournament. And Sean had been doing it, but there were so many that had to be done. And he was so snowed under with, everything that had to be done, because, when they were moving making all the arrangements to move the tournament from Hong Kong to Dubai. So he said, look, can you start doing some of this in social media? So, when you've got to give an elite female cricketer a shout out on social media and you want to sort of encapsulate their biography into a sort of short, punchy little paragraph of 280 characters for Twitter, you know, you've got to be really succinct, and, you know, but you also want to just get every bit of information in there. So you want to tell the audience, well, you know, that she's a left-hander, or she's a spin bowler, or she's this, or she's a doctor on the side, or she's, you know, you want to get her story just in that little paragraph. So whilst I haven't researched these women in depth yet, I do look forward to the opportunity of maybe producing something like this, producing a book that dives into their backstories, because I'm not sure that that's been done yet. I mean, you know, maybe you know, for the really kind of high profile cricketers, you know, people know about them, but, you know, I'm interested in the less known women out there, you know, who play for Bhutan or Nepal or Rwanda. I want to hear about what's brought them to where they've, you know, what's their journey been about, you know, what hardships, what struggles, what roadblocks have they encountered getting to where they are. And there are women like me who will just love that kind of story.
Well, I think there's lots of material there, plenty for you to get on with. Again, you'll have to tie Sean down to the deadline. Know what you'll know next time, if he gives you a deadline of a certain time, that you'll have to beat the deadline, because he'll probably change it. But how have reviews been for the first one? How have reviews been for the first book?
Very good. Everyone that we've given the book to so far has loved it. Very positive feedback. So, you know, Georgia Heath, Isabel Duncan, Mariko, Yasmin Daswani. I gave the book to Adam Collins, the commentator, to read. He messaged me there a couple of weeks ago and said he was flying to India and could he read it on the plane. I haven't heard back from him yet. We had a great review from Jay Dansinghani, who writes for the South China Morning Post. John Blondin, who's the former chair of Australian Business Publishers, and he's written lots of sports books and magazines. He thought it was excellent. Sean has handed it out to various cricket journalists that he knows. Everyone's been really happy with it. Jeff loves it. Alex Blackwell Sana. Because we've self-published, we don't have the the heft of a publishing house behind us in terms of advertising and promotion. And we're still quite early on in global distribution journey. It's going to be for sale in the merchandise tent in Hong Kong. So I've arranged for a whole stack of them to be printed and sent to Hong Kong. So they'll be set up for sale in Hong Kong, and they'll be heavily promoted at the Hong Kong tournament. So I think that's probably where, you know, the rest of the world will start to pick up on it, because, you know, the Hong Kong tournament will be broadcast to 140 countries, and it'll be talked about and discussed, you know, during the commentary. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I've got a lot to learn yet about, you know, I want to spend a bit of time, you know, promoting the book in terms of reaching more, you know, in terms of schools and libraries and getting it out there. But, you know, it's for sale on Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes and Noble, you know, all the usual kind of online publishing, retail publishers. And you can buy it in print form, or you can buy it, you know, for Kindle.
So, Karen, what does FairBreak mean to you?
Well, I told Sean and the audience at my soft launch at Mogadora Farm that writing the FairBreak book was the first time in 40 years of working that I felt fulfilled in my job. And I welled up with tears saying that out loud. And I know Sean was moved by me sharing that. FairBreak is a very special organization to work with. I deeply respect Sean, and I'm so proud to be working with him and a group of people whose ethos and mission is so rock solid. FairBreak is empowering so many women, not just female cricketers, but umpires, coaches, physios, media people, and commentators. And they're creating social impact in communities all around the world by giving more opportunities to players. Look, I've worked in some very patriarchal and misogynistic work environments over my 40-year career, and it is refreshing and an absolute revelation to find myself at FairBreak, where women are heard, valued, and celebrated. And I want women like me who may know nothing about cricket to discover what FairBreak is doing and to learn about what has been achieved in this area of global sport. FairBreak is setting the bar high. And I want audiences around the world to hear about an organisation that can deliver a cricket tournament in an ethical, inclusive and sustainable format.
You must be, in conclusion, you must be very proud of what you've produced.
I am proud. I'm still not quite, I still can't quite get my head around it some days that it's happened. So, but it's been an incredible privilege to be part of such a project. And I feel incredibly honoured that Sean chose me to do it, to give this opportunity to, just an ordinary working mum who knew nothing about cricket, and that he had that faith in me. So, yeah, I feel very honoured that he had that faith.
Well, thank you very much, Karen, for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion. It's always a pleasure to speak to people involved with the FairBreak movement. Best of luck with book sales. Hope you do get a chance to get to Hong Kong. The tournament starts on the 3rd of April, with the final being on the 16th of April. And you've also got the American tour now, so you could be popping over to, is that Texas?
Supposedly, Houston, Texas, yes. But I don't think that is set in stone. I think there are other states that are being considered.
Well, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Paddock and the Pavilion.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at The Pad and Pad. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.